Okay, so the Colossians, as we do today, they're facing false teachers, and the big thing is they're adding something to the gospel. They're making it no gospel at all. And the consequence for that church and us today, if we do the same thing, is that we diminish Christ. We put the pressure of salvation on us, what we do, how good we are. And worst of all, we completely contradict Scripture. And so here's our first point. Christ is supreme. And in this passage, in verses 15 through 17, Paul teaches Christ's supremacy in light of creation. All right, let's read that again real quick. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things were created through him and for him, and he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Now, Paul is illustrating a point using the creation account, but this is not primarily about creation. This is about Christ being supreme. So let's talk about that word supreme, all right? Because most of us hear supreme, and I think we hear everything on the pizza. And that's not what supreme is, okay? Supreme in the dictionary says highest in rank, authority, degree, or quality, all right? And to illustrate this point, I told him this morning I'm a history teacher. I've taught history for about 21 years now, almost 21 years, which is horrifying to think about how old I'm getting. But think about World War II. I always talk about history because you got to do that and keep your history teacher card. In World War II, there was a man named Dwight Eisenhower. He's an American general, but during the war, his title was Supreme Allied Commander. And what that translated to was, it didn't matter that you were, a general, General Bernard Montgomery from England. It didn't matter if you were a general from anywhere else. You ultimately answered to Dwight Eisenhower. And so you had these highest-ranking military officers from all these other countries who at some point had to come in and sit down, on the front side of the desk and say, how are we going to do this? You're the one in charge. And so the first thing I want us to look at is how Christ is supreme. Okay? How Christ is supreme. So Paul compliments the Colossians. That's how he starts every passage. And he kind of warns against this adding to. But then he goes and he makes this first statement. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. And so following that, Paul makes this point. The whole created order, everything, time, space, earth, you and I, owes its existence to Jesus Christ. He is its true origin. He sustains it in being. And so while it's discussing creation, it's not primarily about creation. It's telling us about Jesus. We sang that one of the songs talked about the element. I'm going to not remember the words right now, but stuff cries out to God, right? The rocks cry out to God, the seas cry out to God, all those different things, because they owe their creation to God. And here Paul says he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. Jesus Christ is divine. We should not bother getting bogged down in some of these details. Don't worry about going, who are these powers and dominions? Who's that? I want to know who that is, because that doesn't matter. Just know that they exist because Christ created everything. This last week we were teaching some things on ancient Egypt out at school, and we were talking about the Exodus and the 10 plagues. And if you remember, right in the middle of the 10 plagues, right before God directs his attention primarily at Pharaoh, God makes these two really powerful statements. Basically, he looks at Pharaoh and he says, this is Exodus 7 through 12, but I can't remember exactly where it is off the top of my head. But God, through Moses, first tells Pharaoh, listen, you're alive because I want you alive. If I wanted to kill you, I could kill you. The next thing he says is, I raised you up to show my power. You're Pharaoh because I want you to be Pharaoh. You're here today. We are doing this. We're, whatever you do Monday through Friday,